Violins are mostly known as classical instruments, but there's so much more to them. We stopped by the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix, Arizona, and spoke with Associate Curator David Wegehaupt to learn 5 things we didn't know about the violin. First, it's more than 400 years old.
The violin originated in the mid-16th century in Cremona, Italy, made by the luthier Andrea Amati. Before the violin, there were a number of different forms and shapes and numbers of strings for bowed lute instruments. And when Amati added a 4th string, he sort of set the standard for the way that the violin will be made.
Next, it has 2 names.
A violin is a violin played in classical music. Sometimes it's called a violin in jazz, but the same instrument will be called a fiddle in bluegrass music and other folk traditions.
There can be some differences,
But they're essentially the same shape, construction. There's a common joke. What's the difference between a violin and a fiddle? About $5,000.
The third thing you didn't know? The design is complex.
There's at least 64, sometimes more than 80 different pieces of wood involved in the construction, from the top and back, ribs, fingerboard, scroll. But internally, there's all kinds of structure for making sure the instrument can stay bound together.
And
The wood needs to be aged and seasoned. For any decent violin, that'll be at least 10 years.
our next factoid, violins can be expensive.
The most expensive violin was sold in 2012, and it sold for, reported later, $16 million. And often investors will buy these instruments because there are no more Guarneris, no more Stradivari, no more Amatis. These instruments aren't being made anymore, so they're rare, valuable objects.
Finally, they vary in size.
They, in fact, make them in fractional sizes because oftentimes children begin playing violin quite young.
They set up the size in fractions.
1/16, 1/8, 1/4, and as the player grows, they get the next bigger violin.
And those are 5 things you didn't know about the violin.